Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pails, steel-toe boots?
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure. Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jalen.
Can I call it John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
There it is, Sherrod. What's going on, everybody? It is the Garden Report. We're back with the Garden Report post-game show, an actual post-game show following the Celtics' first Summer League game, a loss to the Miami Heat, 119-114. Bobby was calling it sloppy on Twitter. I think it was wildly entertaining. To score this many points in a 40-minute game is nuts. Right. Defense optional tonight, but it doesn't matter. Scores don't matter. Really not much matters here other than snapshots of players that you're watching that you're hoping may contribute in the near future or, not too distant future with the Celtics. Who's a keeper, who's not. I was about to quit. I was ready to quit on JD Davison before the game started, and he pulls me back in. So we'll get everybody's takes. And all of these guys, you can't tell it from their backgrounds because they had to scurry off into corners of the Thomas Mack. Is that where you guys are?
Yep.
Thomas Mack Center. They're all in Vegas. I'm here. Okay. I'm all alone. I feel like Jimmy Toscano. I'm not invited to the cool kids party, but these guys are all in Las Vegas, taking it all in. So we'll start with the people on the scene. We'll start with Noah, Dalzell here, Celtics blog, and so many other places where you catch her work, and obviously a great deal here on CLNS Media. But Noah, is this your first Summer League action, or did you go last year too?
No, this is my first one.
First one. So what's the number one takeaway? And again, we're looking at the first and second year guys, obviously, to see what, you're going to get out of that. Anything stand out to you that you were particularly looking to see that you thought was, okay, here's my takeaway?
Yeah, I would say the player that stood out to me the most was Jaden Springer and just what he was able to do on both ends and just looked really comfortable defensively. Once he got on Hawkins in the second half, he was really impacting the game. And he's somebody that the Celtics traded for because they really believe in him and they really, they see him being a potential piece here. And I thought that he looked just really calm, cool, collected. And he's just 21. So he feels like he's been around for a long time, but he's still a really young guy. And he's not nearly where he could potentially be in a few years. So he stood out quite a bit. That Scheierman as well, but I'll let someone else touch on him. But yeah, Springer is the guy that I think from everybody tonight just looked really ready and kind of complete.
Yeah. Bobby?
Yeah, his second half was pretty encouraging. And talk about another guy, John, who you're on the borderline of like, is he going to make it? Is he going to last here? And he showed out in that second half. He showed shot creation ability, which was pretty surprising. And then, of course, he's doing all the defensive stuff you expect from him. So this was a image-saving kind of performance for him coming out of a season where he didn't get involved much, and when in the pockets of garbage time and different moments where you saw him, didn't show out a ton, especially offensively. He just looked so offensively limited after he arrived from Philadelphia. So that was definitely the story of this one. In terms of individual performances, obviously JD hand in hand with him, but you feel like Springer's probably ahead of him in the organizational hierarchy just based on their contracts alone right now, but that could change. And they both had pretty good games here. Scheierman, the first impression was aggressiveness. He got a couple shots off early. They weren't pretty shots. They were pretty bad misses. And he stayed aggressive, I thought. And it was a nice floater that got him going. The passing, he leaned into that when the shot wasn't falling, which is everything we talked about with him, that he's not just a shooter. So it was nice for him to be able to get, it was like 3 assists in a minute there that got him going offensively. And defensively, I asked him after the game how he felt about how he did there. And he said, given that he had to guard Jaime Jaquez, pretty good.
I like that they did that too, which is like sink or swim. Go guard an NBA player because it doesn't really matter what you do against anyone else. And, a couple times, it's Jaquez. He's a friggin' first team all rookie player last year. He really shouldn't. He shouldn't be here. We were saying like it's unfair to have a guy like Queta here. Jaquez shouldn't be within a mile of this. I know he's only going to play a couple of games, but I don't know what he's out here. Brandon Miller's playing too, isn't he?
Yeah, I believe so.
There's a couple of guys I didn't expect to be playing Summer League that are playing Summer League, but whatever. Yeah, it's better to have that, right?
On a jersey and jumped in.
I know, right? He was a veteran presence on the bench. It's better to have someone like that out there. Springer's such an interesting case because of the fourth year in the league, still trying to prove himself at summer league, and a guy you're still talking about potential, but he's so friggin' young. He's 21. You've got your two rookies that are going to be 24 during the regular season. Springer's still 21 years old. Jordan Walsh is a teenager. He's only 19. So like those guys, you have to recognize that there is more time. Even the three youngest guys on the roster, right, are Springer, Walsh, and JD. And like I said, JD's entering his third year, Springer in his fourth. So we got to remember to be patient with these guys. They're still young pups. Sherrod, what do you got?
Well, that patience you talk about, John, it's really important when you look at just the way the Celtics roster is constructed. You have the luxury of being patient with them because the positions that most of those guys play, you already have not just good players in those positions, but good, talented, proven, established talent that you don't have to rush a JD Davison out there to play for you right away. And I thought this was really, to me, that the two guys that stood out, Springer obviously did a lot of good things, but I love what I saw from JD from a shot making standpoint. I think that has been the one area of his game that really hasn't quite evolved as well as I thought it would at this point. And, the rookie, Baylor, the thing I liked about his game was the playmaking. I mean, he had like 6 assists. From the wing position for the Celtics to get 6 assists, we don't see that very often. And yeah, granted, it's summer league, but it speaks to his ability to recognize how to get the ball in the hands of others who can make some shots and make some plays. So I was really impressed with just his feel for the game and recognizing how to get others involved. And JD is shot making, I thought was really big. And Springer, to your point, John, the fact that he's been in the league 4 years, I would hope that in summer league you would be able to show out a little bit. I would hope that you would show out.
Well, I think also, with Springer, he's trying to. I love, by the way, that Scheierman, the best picture we have is him with a friggin' suit and tie. We got no playing picture. There he is, that guy wearing
that
a
was
suit
him
and tie.
at the interview.
Yeah. Springer's probably like, I do more than play defense, and it is so interesting for the auditioning things. It's like, if you're a Celtics fan, you're really only interested in. I mean, you're interested in everything, I guess. But, you want to see Scheierman, right? You guys, the first round draft pick of the Brad Stevens era, and it's a guy with a pedigree, and you're hoping you might be able to cash in on whatever he can contribute kind of soonish. You kind of wonder, can he get in there? Can he work his way into, if not rotational minutes, top of the stay ready crew sort of situation? Can he play? Can he have some spot duty? Is there a way that he's got 8-10? Does he get Peyton Pritchard minutes consistently this year playing at that wing position, or the off guard? That's what you kind of want to see. But then you have all these other guys who are like, don't you forget about me, and that Davidson is one of them. I was talking about him earlier. I was about to tweet at the beginning of the game, like, I think I've seen enough of JD Davison to know that I don't want to see any more of JD Davison. That's kind of mean, but it's just simply being like, I think I'd made up my mind. And then he's out there like, no, man, I can play, and he signs this 2-way and he wants to come back. So everybody out there wants to show out. Scheierman's probably the guy with the least amount that he has to show because he has that learning curve. He's day one, game one, year one. He's just starting. He's supposed to have, take some lumps along the way, and his spot is secure. He's a first-round draft pick, and they're going to give him time, and they're going to try to develop. Some of those other guys are kind of fighting for their NBA lives and some sort of relevancy at this point, which is like, I could be playing overseas in a year if I don't start showing people that I belong here. And I think those guys kind of fall into that category, which is, hey, look at me. So good on them, good on Davison, and good on Springer for coming in there. Other takeaways here, again, Queta, we said would be a little bit unfair, in this sort of summer league action. Bobby, I'm not going to make this a Queta Cornet show right off the bat, but
oh boy,
what's going to happen this year? What's going to happen this year? What's your prediction today on what happens rotationally this year? Because I know they need cheap players, and Queta could be roster filler, and he could spend the rest of his NBA life in the 10 to 15 range on an NBA roster, or maybe somebody who's coming off the bench on a weaker team. But he's fighting for minutes. He's fighting with one guy here,
did he look any different to you? And again, obviously the competition is what it is.
Yeah, he looked pretty similar. In fact, especially early, a little disappointed with the
worse.
finishing. Couple
yeah.
plays around the rim where he just
Tell
kind
us
of
what tell us what Queta did wrong today. Yes, tell us what he did wrong tonight.
I don't think he had an amazing game. There were definitely some plays around the rim where, you got to finish that in there. And there was a lot of spacing issues in this game, so I'm sure that played into it. And then, defensively, you're looking for a little bit more there in terms of rim protection. So, yeah, he went out there and did his thing. Yeah, this is kind of who he is right now. And, I think you're looking for him to improve a little bit on the defensive end. You're looking for him to probably be closer to a 70% finisher. And that's where Luke was last year, right at 70%, which is, I think, the number you need to be at if you're going to be running to the rim pretty loose off the playmakers on the team. And there's still just a few too many plays where he's just kind of juggling it up, tipping it in, and unable to finish in there. When he's in the lane off a drop off or whatever it might be there, and he's by himself, he's going to flush it in. And there was that one play early where he dunked on Hawkes that was amazing. And the offensive rebounding is great. That's the one thing I think, Joe's going to look at and be intrigued by when it comes to him, because Scheierman was saying it, and we heard it all year with them. They need offensive rebound, especially with O'Shea potentially not being here. He was the best out of that front court crew in terms of that. So Queta has the edge in that area over any of the
he's also got magnet hands. Like he's the guy. So many
ridiculously magnetic hands.
Magnetic hands, and that helps with the rebounding a ton, because how many guys last year, like Cornet, and this isn't throwing shade at Cornet, I think a lot of people do it. The tip rebound. Like, I can't rip this thing out of the sky. I'm gonna just kind of keep it in play and maybe direct it towards safe, a safe landing.
Yeah, Queta's a really strong rebounder,
but it's on the catches too. Like that's a couple things I like. I agree. He's still a little loose and sloppy, and sometimes can look lost out there. I also will think, these guys don't know each other, and they won't know each other. The majority of them, they'll never see each other again, in a little while. But those are a couple of things that really stand out to me with him. I don't know, Noah.
Yeah, I didn't think Queta looked bad. He had a couple plays that were a little bit out of character to me, but I mean, he still finished with 20 points in 23 minutes, 6 offensive rebounds. Like, I thought he kind of got increasingly comfortable. Early on, he looked a little rough. But I watched a lot of Queta when he was in Maine last year, and he was too good for Maine when he was in the rhythm. Like, when he was playing consecutive games with Maine, he was very dominant. You could very much tell he didn't belong there. And so I don't know. I do think he's going to be a part of the rotation, and I feel like everybody's wondering about him and Luke and who's going to have the upper hand. I could see it going either way, but I also could see it just being really situational and them using both of them kind of at times. But I mean, they gave him a 3-year contract, so I do think that they view him as a piece, part of the future. And tonight wasn't like a statement game from him in Summer League. I think we'll see him have better games, but he was really solid for what was required of him.
And like Sherrod, this whole thing. Go ahead, Bobby. Go ahead.
At this phase of his career, Sherrod, and Noah and I were talking about this earlier, you want some of these guys, especially the guys who have played NBA minutes so far, to look like they don't belong here. Obviously, that's what Hawkes did here tonight. Again, I'm not saying Queta looked bad here, but he didn't look like he didn't belong here, if you know what I mean.
Queta is a guy that is going to be a borderline rotation guy. And borderline rotation guys, I think, back to Noah's point, I think they are kind of in that Mendoza space where they're too good for the G League, but they're not quite good enough to be an NBA regular. And I think as the season progresses, I think he's going to inch closer and closer to being an NBA regular, because there's certain things that he does that help you win games, that you don't have anyone on your roster exceptional in those areas. As we pointed out, he's got incredibly strong hands. I don't think they have anyone with stronger hands when it comes to rebounding the ball than Queta. I don't. And his ability, again, very active on the offensive boards. That's something that, once again, they don't have a lot of guys who are really good at that, other than maybe Peyton Pritchard, Drew Holiday, who are probably the 2 best offensive rebounding guys, and they play in a backcourt. So I do think as the season progresses, he's going to showcase what he does well. And I think ultimately those qualities are what's going to eventually allow him to surpass Luke. But obviously at the beginning of training camp, Luke should be your number 3 center. I don't know if he's –
that's the problem.
Who's your third center?
Who is this without Porzingis though? That's what we don't know. So that's the problem.
I think they'll start Tillman and have Luke as the backup. I think.
The reason I'm interested in Queta is I'm curious how that's going to play out, because you think, especially if you're not doing Al on the back-to-backs, you're going to have nights where Tillman is starting in the Al role, and then someone's coming in as your second center, Cornette, and then you might still be getting, you might have to switch those minutes. I think of all of the guys we're seeing tonight in this summer league action, the guy with the closest path to minutes is probably Queta. Just based on what you're going to have in terms of needs when the season starts.
Not just needs, but I just think, again, he was the one guy who, when you look at his numbers, they didn't come as a surprise, because in theory, he should be playing this well against this level of competition. Whereas Springer, this was a kind of an eye-opening type of game for him, because we really haven't seen him do much, particularly when it comes to shot making. And the same thing goes for JD. So for those guys, their play was very much of a revelation of sorts as to maybe these guys can help a team win, and then maybe they can play their way into maybe not the rotation, but certainly guys that they can turn to in a pinch from time to time. But Queta's the guy that, again, he has the best shot at being in a regular rotation. I don't think he's done it. Certainly he didn't do enough in this game, and I don't think he'll do enough in the summer to leapfrog himself past Luke. But training camp, a good summer league can give him maybe a little extra boost confidence-wise going into training camp to compete with Luke, because, with or without Porzingis in the mix, him and Luke are going to be competing for minutes. That's not going to change. So, again, I just think Queta has some skills and abilities that this team sorely lacks, that they may look to tap into more of as the season progresses.
I also just think it's, in summer league, there's only so many assumptions that we can really draw, because we're seeing everybody play in a different role than they're going to have during the year. Like he's taking 15 shots in 20 minutes. Like he's not going to be that involved offensively next year. Like someone like Springer, who I'm really high on, but he won Finals MVP in the G League 2 years ago. So this isn't coming out of nowhere, the ability to dominate at this level and to play really well, right? Like he's already shown us flashes of that. So a lot of it is just seeing bits and pieces, but I do think it's still very speculative. That's the tough part of seeing people play well or not play well. Like I was thinking, how would Tillman look out here tonight? Would he be dominating? I don't know if he's the kind of player that would be dominating in this environment, but obviously we all feel pretty good about his ability to be kind of highest in the post rotation, right? So that's part of the challenge, at least for my end, of just watching.
I think Cornette would have dominated.
Oh boy.
I think
so. You think Cornette would have dominated tonight? I don't.
Sherrod, who was that lefty that they drafted that we tried to hold on to for a while back, maybe 10, 12 years ago? God. He was like 15th, 16th round, 16th pick or overall.
Are you talking about Juwan Johnson?
No. Juwan Johnson. No, forget it. Anyway, oh man, it's going to eat me alive. Not
Romeo.
No,
say it ain't so.
James Young, we held on to him for a while, and then I think it was like he played Vegas year 3 and couldn't dominate, and it was like, that's it, pack it up. So some guys, at least you can dominate at this level, which is good. But we talked about this last show. It's those 4A guys, right? Like they're right on that line. They're too good for one, but not good enough for the other. You wonder would they crack it, which is again why, not to be like a jerk about it, but I didn't really care about Springer's performance or Davison's performance.
Well, that was the thing.
I really only cared about Scheierman, because I'm just like, that's where my hopes are pinned right now on that. Did you get a gem there? Did you get a good guy? And that's why I was watching that intently. It's almost like, I'm not going to say a waste, but it's like, okay, do I need to see another game where Springer, takes 15, 16 shots and scores 20 points? I don't know, because I don't know that I have
a good point.
Such high hopes of what he's going to do there. And Noah pointed out, this isn't going to be his role. If his path to NBA minutes is not going to look anything close to this, he's just going to come in and try to D up and stay out of the way and knock down an open shot if he has it. But I don't know.
Yeah, he has the straightest path to a role this year, I feel like, even more so than Queta, because right now you don't have two wings on. And you're certainly going to be resting Tatum and Brown and other guys throughout the course of this year. And there might be some injuries, whatever else. And it almost feels like, in terms of what they have right now on the roster, he's the next man up at that wing spot. If he can show something here, Queta, there's several guys in front of him, and who knows if O'Shea's going to be back in that mix here too. So I would actually point to him. And, back to your point about what we're watching here, John, when I called the performance sloppy, or the game overall sloppy, it's the fact that you didn't see that Celtic structure because no one knows, even being up in Maine. You see like a structure that looks like the Celtics. They're getting up the threes. They're running the offensive sets. They're playing with that kind of format offensively. This game is 10 guys in the paint, and people are running into each other, and they're trying to get the ball up the court, and they're struggling to do so. Like, you don't see
They
that
still
stuff
put
when you're
up
watching the Celtics.
114 points, which was crazy. But yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
and
It's
that was
always going
more-
to be like that.
Yeah, that was more guys just kind of seeking their shot and finding it across the board there. And that's what summer league usually looks like. That's what preseason usually looks like.
Well, that's why
G League sometimes. This was more traditional performance.
Everybody without a roster spot or at least a two-way contract is out there literally auditioning for their lives. So
Right.
naturally they get the ball. They're just going to pull it,
Yeah.
that's what they're out there to do. So, I mean, you're going to get some wild, stat lines and performances out of that. We are going to hear from a few of the players, including Baylor Scheierman, Bayley. In just a minute, we've got some sound loaded up. We'll get to all of those guys. Hey, shit, I called O'Shea, Brissett, Jacoby all year. You got to give me a little time to warm up to these guys. So we'll hear from all those guys in a minute. We want to tell you briefly about a couple of our sponsors here. We will start, of course, with Game Time. You want to get into, I don't know, if you're in Vegas, check out some Celtics Summer League. If you're here, check out the Red Sox. Now 4.5 games, Bobby, out of first, I think, not just a wild card. Get in with Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace. You download that app, create an account, use the code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase, and you can get in some of your favorite games, some of your favorite concerts. Great concerts coming to the area here. If you're local and you're living in the Boston area, a lot of stuff you want to check out, and Game Time is the place to do it. Tickets actually go down the closer you get to game time or tip off or the start of the show, what have you. So make sure you check it out. Great features, last minute deals, flash deals, panoramic views from your seat, you name it. Game Time is the destination for you if you want tickets to your favorite event. Download that app again, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. And Prize Picks, we'll tell you a little bit about them. Number one fantasy sports app, official DFS partner of the CLNS Media Network. You see it right on the screen. Deposit 100, get to 100, 100% deposit match up to $100. All you have to do to play, pick anywhere from 2 to 6 of your favorite players, take more or less on a particular stat. If you hit, you could win up to 100 times your money. Really fun. A lot of things you can still get in on, even though, NBA season is over, NHL season is over. You got baseball, you got the WNBA, and all the sports are coming around the corner. So you want to get in on the action now. Download it. Deposit match up to 100 when you use that code CLNS. Back to the games, guys. Let's hear a little bit from Baylor Scheierman, who did start slow. Those first couple of shots. I mean, he's no Justin Turpin out there, in the beginning. He was off. Those are two of the most horrific misses I can remember seeing. Horrific. But fine, who cares? It was actually the other stuff that you were more interested in seeing. And at the end of the day, he really does he's got a lot of feel, and a lot of IQ, and made the smart play and the right play a lot of times. And even when he pulled the shot, maybe it was a tad rushed. He's just getting used to the speed of things. When he did have a good look there in transition, he knocked down his first three. I think everything mellowed out a little bit for him. He knocked down a corner three. I thought the passing was outstanding here. Not just setting up guys for buckets, but good stuff in transition, getting rebounds and getting rid of the ball and getting it out quickly. So I was encouraged by the performance. Again, what can you tell from playing against this level of competition? But I thought he looked like a ball player. Let's hear from him after the game.
Court vision out there, and he immediately said, if you ask him, he'd say you're a quarterback. So how often do you tell people you're a quarterback? And when you're throwing those touchdowns after the rebounds, how do they feel?
Yeah, a lot of people knew that I was a quarterback beforehand. So a lot of times that's like the first thing the announcers say in the game notes is Baylor Scheierman was a quarterback. So I think it definitely helps with my vision, but it feels pretty good out there. I like getting my teammates involved. I've said it multiple times, but I'd rather get an assist than score a bucket, especially if it's like a cool pass. So I'm always looking for my teammates and trying to get them open shots.
Develop that passing game over the years, and was that kind of your goal going into the second unit, just to set some guys up?
yeah, it kind of started when I was really young. Watching Pistol Pete growing up, he was throwing all those flashy passes, and I tried to emulate that when I was super young. And then as I continued to grow and develop, it kind of just stayed a part of my game. Like you said, going in with whoever I'm playing with, I'm looking to get my teammates involved, get them open shots, and make them feel good.
Pistol Pete.
That you know what?
Pistol Pete was dead before Baylor was born.
That's what NBA Classics is for. Clearly,
that's great.
Clearly, the fact that he even knows the name, the fact that he even recognized that there's this guy that was really good named Pistol Pete is brilliant.
That's a young Nick Gelso we have in our hands,
boy.
Oh my goodness, reverence for the elders. I like that a lot.
That had to be his dad.
Huh?
I don't even know where getting into Pistol Pete from, but the passing's awesome. I think that bounce pass where he hit Anton was with his right hand too, obviously the lefty. He does some flashy stuff with the ball, and you saw it all over his college tape, and you start to stack up what he can do. The shooting's obviously there. But you add the passing and the rebound. He was pretty good on the boards in this game too, I thought. So he's really exciting. I'm still kind of shocked that they got him at 30. You look at this guy and you're like, you would have taken a flyer on this guy in the 20s if you're a team here, because that's just so much stuff that he can do. But I guess the defensive concerns are that big with him, or the age. Guys are just so biased. Like 23-year-old or 4 or 5 year college guy. I think that's a big part of it here too.
I think we're getting to the point where teams are getting past that age bias issue. When you see time and time again, there's like 2 or 3 guys damn near every year who are seniors, who are late first, early second round picks who actually help teams win games. I mean, and I think Malcolm Brogdon was kind of the one guy that really kind of showed that not only can you help teams win, but you can be the best rookie in your damn class if you get an opportunity.
How about another 30th overall pick, Desmond Bane?
Yeah. Don't remind Celtics fans. Well, actually, you can remind Celtics fans now because they got a championship, so it doesn't matter any much. But
the cost of getting rid of Enes Kanter is what you mean. Right?
You had to say the E word. Yeah. But the thing about Baylor is that the lack of athleticism or ability to play above not necessarily above the rim, but just be more of an athlete out there. I think it scared a lot of teams off, particularly when you look at a team like the Celtics and you look at their starting 5 and their role players, and that level of athleticism is really high. You start looking at the top tier teams in the NBA, their 3 top 4 players have a high level of athleticism. And I think teams are nervous about that with Baylor, which is great for a team like the Celtics because you've got so much athleticism already in stock. You just need guys with high basketball IQ who can make plays and maybe knock down some shots. And he seems to check off those boxes at a pretty good clip. And I think in time, he'll just only get better.
Noah, you were going to jump in there on Baylor?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that, the Celtics already have a couple of project kind of more raw players like Jordan Walsh as well. So I feel like they just wanted somebody that could be more of a connective piece that's ready to be thrown in for real minutes. And, he missed those first few shots, but he generally looked pretty well all around, like getting rebounds, throwing really nice passes. Every assist felt like it was a completely different kind of pass too. So it wasn't like he just kept doing the same thing over and over again. It's like he clearly has a broad range of kinds of passes that he's looking at. And that clip that, you just played, just the fact that that's what he's looking for, that's where he kind of gets his joy from the game. It's pretty clear when you watch him play that he's always looking at everybody. So I thought that, he was the kind of player that the stat line won't show you how good he looked tonight. I feel like he showed flashes of a whole lot of things in a pretty short span.
Hey, I want to say thank you here. Super chat coming in, Cobra.
Cool, thanks, man. Cobra Crease.
We're gonna put those $5 right in the blackjack.
Yeah, each of you. We'll divide this one 3 ways. Are there $5 tables out there? Anyway, Cobra, thank you. Yeah, no, it's fun doing shows. It's fun doing post-game shows and having live stuff to react to. I'll remind anybody, super chats, of course, are welcome. The proceeds are divided up among the hosts. It doesn't go to the greedy overlords who run CLNS Media. So we do appreciate that. Thank you very much for contributing. It helps us continue to bring this content
to you guys for free. Yeah, Baylor's like that guy you like playing pickup with, right? Like he's just going to find you. That was
Exactly.
great. One of my favorite plays there was the one to Queta, where he absolutely, I think most guys who shoot the way he shoots, he pulls that three, but he didn't rush it. He kind of waited. I almost think he waited a split second longer to suck in the D a little bit. And then he found the streaker there, for the layup, which was the right play. But just everything looked like nifty. He just looked like he was in control. It's going to come down to athleticism, right? That's it. Just speed of the game. And yeah, that is the fear, is like, they were saying about him coming out of the draft that like he's competitive defensively, and it's like what you're hoping for here. I know the comparisons are to Hauser. I don't think he's a Hauser type player. I think he can do a lot more things. There's more dynamic aspect to his game with the passing and the way he reads things and the way he can handle the ball. So I don't think he's just a dead-eye shooter, but you're hoping the one comparison I'll say is if he can play defense like Sam Hauser plays, or at that level and remain competitive and stay in front of guys and not get played off the court, I think there's a path to minutes kind of on the Sooner side for him.
And that was the thing about Sam that made him, I think, a more palatable option for Missoula than he was for Ime. His defense. Sam is not a walking turnstile defensively. Now, is he Derrick White? Is he Drew Holiday? No, but he is a serviceable defender. And as we saw in the finals, he can hold his own at times against some of the best scoring players in the league. The way he defended Luka, I thought at times was really, really good. And Baylor, I think, again, he has a better, I think, overall feel for what needs to be done when he's on the floor than Sam does, because Sam is a sniper. I mean, Sam is just an absolutely stone cold-blooded shooter. Baylor is I don't think as good a shooter as Sam, but he can do so many other things, I think, offensively that will allow him to be on the floor at some point, sooner probably rather than later, and not have you in nervous Nelly mode that, oh my God, if he's not making shots, he can't help us. There's some other things he can do to help you besides knocking down threes.
Yeah. So that was a good stuff. A couple of other guys I want to hit on just individually. Talking about rookies, your thoughts on Watson? Noah?
I thought he looked good. I mean, the thing with him is the defensive versatility. Like, I feel like we've heard that phrase a bunch of times, but that was on display. I mean, he was in a more limited role, and part of that is because I think he's going to be in a more limited role as well. But he checked the boxes, at least as far as I was concerned. He had good feel around the rim. And then it just felt like when he was caught up in different situations, he was able to handle them well. So, he's the kind of guy I feel like, you can't expect so much with that draft pick. Like, if you can get anything out of him, that's a win. And I do think that he might surprise people and actually in the next few years here actually show that he's an NBA level player and contribute.
I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in the G League, because I think if he can go there and start really showcasing a little bit more than just a multifaceted defender, if you can actually knock down shots, finish at the rim, maybe be a pretty good rim runner, I think that, to Noah's point, is really going to accelerate the likelihood of him getting on the floor sooner rather than later. But I thought for first game out, this was a good showing. And, for a late second round pick, I thought he showed a lot of promise, certainly more promise than some other more widely regarded late second round picks have shown thus far in Summer League. So yeah, this was a good showing for him.
What is he supposed to be? Like, what do you
Al Horford light?
Like, what are you expecting from
Horford.
him? You think so? That's his
what
play.
KOC said.
You see that in his game?
Well, defensively is where you're looking for him to be able to guard all those positions, and you finally saw it. I don't think there were a lot of standout moments from defensively. Definitely wasn't involved a ton.
Oh, the block on Jaquez there, I think, was the one. But yeah,
so that was when you really saw
him.
it.
He got a step on him, but he got up quick. Look, this guy does not. He's not a super athlete either.
No,
he's not. Yeah, but he got up off the floor pretty quick on that one. So good that he was able to recover. It was good recovery, and he got off his feet quick to block that shot. So I liked it. But like, he's not super athletic. I'm kind of curious. Like, yeah, I've heard the Al stuff. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out like what this guy could become or where he plugs in.
So they played him at the 5 a lot in this one. So he was playing around the basket offensively, which I don't think is ideal for him. He shot well around the rim in college, but at this level, I don't think that's going to be his game. He's got to develop a 3-point shot. And he was 41% his last year in college, only shot like 58. And Brad, DJ, you heard them both say he just needs to shoot. And I wish he took 7 threes in this game, to pull a Joe. Like he needs to just shoot like crazy out there. And again, when we talk about that front court, John, there's an opening there. If someone can really take a step or stand out, whether it's Queta or Tillman takes some steps this summer, or Cornette really solidifies that role, that's a wide open position while Porzingis is out for 2-3 months. So you can't eliminate Watson from that either if he can develop a 3 and show that he's capable of guarding all these different positions. Now, of course, Al's going to primarily fill that role, but eventually you do have to develop a guy who can play the 4 a little bit, who can play the 5, maybe a little undersized, but he's shooting 3s and he's guarding positions. Yeah, and not to say Watson's going to be Al's replacement here, but he's in that mold a little bit of that kind of player. And I wish, at least offensively tonight, he was playing that style a little bit more tonight. Again, I keep going back to the fact that it felt like they just rolled the ball out there and just kind of took shots and played today. And I get it. It's the first game of summer league and these guys have never played together before, but there really wasn't a ton of structure to what they were doing out there. It looked like, I don't know, Noah, did you see more of it than I did?
No, I think you're right. And I think it's also important to remember that Miami's already played a couple of summer league games together. And so those guys, like that was not their first showing. And the Celtics, it was like they just started camp this week. And so they looked like it too, like especially the new pieces, everything looked kind of jumbled. But Watson's one, I feel like you didn't see a whole lot from him just in general, that I feel like at the end of summer league, we'll be able to assess his whole body of work a little bit more than just the glimpses that we saw tonight, because I think everyone's interested in seeing how he looks and what his potential is. And he does fit more in that mold of like versatility over athleticism. But I feel like there's a track record in Boston for that prototype actually being more effective, like the Tillmans over the Quetas, right? So not that he's necessarily either of those guys, but I think his skill set might translate well down the road. But we're going to need like a whole bunch more of a sample size than just what we saw tonight, because that felt to me really limited. And a lot of the mistakes that were made, it was hard to tell. Is it Watson that was out of position? Was it somebody else? So many miscommunications, so many open layups for the Celtics that, just it was hard to just gauge like
It was
where
a
the
layup
problem
line.
was. I know, yeah. And where we were sitting too, it was like you were just watching them and people were just out of position, trying to dive in, try to contest them. So just hard to gauge like what the problem actually was. But I'm eager to see like these next 5 games, how he looks.
The Heat had better athletes on the floor. That's that's one of the things that the downside to the 2 players the Celtics got is the Celtics definitely needed an infusion of athleticism. I think they're not like the most athletic team. They're not unathletic, but they're lacking explosive athletes. They have guys, like I said, White isn't White, Holiday. These guys aren't like jump out of the gym, blah, 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 explosive. Tatum is athletic, but not like, this high, the bench, not super athletic, they're not. And so I would have liked a little infusion of athleticism, a little more than what they got here. And they're not really like Watson's not like,
JD's the athlete, right? And he's a little undersized. Yeah. I feel like Walsh brings. I really want to bring up Walsh, and I don't.
So I was going to get to Walsh off of this, which is I think people wanted to see something a lot better than this. It's one game. It's one Vegas League game, but we're talking about, again, you're the second-year guy. You've got a little bit under your belt. As Noah put out there, you've got a guy like Springer, who's a G League MVP, Queta, who's dominated down there. You should, against this level of competition, you should look a little bit better than that. And he didn't. But again, it's one game. But it's like he looked like he didn't, like he looked out of sorts.
Yeah, he did. And I thought, when Bobby had mentioned earlier about Springer, possibly being, with Tatum Brown maybe getting a little more rest this season, Springer, I thought Jordan Walsh was going to be that guy. And I still think he has the best chance of being that guy for the Celtics if they're going to go a little bit deeper into that second unit. Just because, again, I just Jordan, he's Springer is the better athlete, but I think Jordan Walsh has a little bit more of an intangible centric game. So much of what his game is about is, I think, contesting shots, diving for loose balls, making hustle plays. And I don't think he's super athletic, but I don't think he's, unathletic either. I think he's just a pretty good basketball player with a pretty high basketball IQ that can do some things to help you win. But this was a bad game. I think he was trying too hard to be a shot maker, and that's just not who he is. We talked earlier about just the roles that they're playing now are very different than what they will do during the regular season.
He's not a
And
shot creator. He should
no,
be hopefully a 3-and-D sort of guy.
well, I would in a perfect world, he's a 3-and-D guy who benefits from moving without the ball, a la Avery Bradley. Remember when Avery Bradley could not make shots, but damn it, he could cut along that baseline and be found for layups. I think Jordan Walsh has that type of potential, but it felt as though he was trying to be something in this game that he's not, and that is a guy that can knock down threes. I just don't think that's necessarily a significant part of his game, but to get to this level, there has to be a certain level of irrational confidence that you play with. And sometimes you're going to have great games that are where you're playing way above your head. And other times you're going to have games like this where Jordan Walsh is not a great shooter, but I don't think he's 0 for 6 horrible or 1 for 8 bad. He's got to figure out what he needs to do to really establish himself as a legitimate and viable alternative if Joe decides to go with a little bit more depth at that wing position, give Tatum and Brown a rest.
I have a lot of thoughts on Jordan because I feel like in Maine last year, he played that 3-and-D role so much. Like they really kept him in a very limited spot. You didn't see him off the dribble a lot. You didn't see them run the offense through him really at all. They were running the offense through guys that weren't even two ways a lot more than they were him. And he mentioned this at practice yesterday, but he said, this is fun because I get to kind of get in my bag a little bit more. I don't have to play that 3-and-D role exclusively that I play in Maine. And I think you saw him maybe try that tonight, and obviously it didn't go well at all, but it's also like he's not in practice of playing that role. Like he has not done it really in a very long time. And just the Jordan Jaden Springer comparison, Jaden Springer, every time I've seen him play, he's like actually a ball hawk. Like he makes the person that he's guarding really uncomfortable. And Jordan Walsh, we hear that a lot about him. Like there's a narrative around him having a high defensive ceiling, but we haven't actually seen that yet. We haven't seen him take the toughest defensive matchup and really disrupt the person that he's guarding. So I think he can get there, but right now it's a lot more just speculative with him and conjecture of like, is he going to get to that point? Whereas Jaden Springer, like he played one G League game last year, and the guy that he was guarding was like ready to hang up his shoes at the end of the game because he was so frustrated with Jaden being all over him. And again tonight, I thought Jaden really disrupted Hackett when he got that assignment in the second half. Jordan Walsh, it's still, I don't know if he can actually get to that point defensively, which is where everybody's kind of selling him at this point. So I think as far as like who has a better chance to crack the rotation or make an impact, you kind of have to go with Jaden at this point, just based off what we're actually able to see.
This one really hurt me.
I think you're right. Go ahead, Bobby.
This one really hurt me as a Walsh guy. It wasn't the bad shooting or some of the frenetic plays on offense. And as Noah mentioned, you didn't really see what you want to defensively. The frustration he wears out there, you see it in a way that you don't quite see with many other guys. When he's struggling out there, he missed those 2 back-to-back threes before halftime, and he just let out this groan in the corner right in front of Noah and I where we were sitting. And it's like, oh man, like he's wearing these struggles right now. And that's how it kind of spirals to 1 for 8 and, the 0 for 6 from 3 there. And, again, watching him a little bit in Maine last year and just kind of keeping tabs on him, I felt like he got much better with that as the year went on. And again, this guy's young. So obviously, he came into the league with high hopes, wanted to get involved with Boston. I think he struggled with that a little bit in the early stages of basically being assigned to Maine all year. But as Noah mentioned, like he found a role up there. He figured out what he had to do to get to Boston. And then he pretty much committed to the fact that he was going to be in Maine for that whole year. And it's tough, right? Because I know he wants to get involved. I know he thinks he can do it. Like he has the abilities. He's got the body. He's got all that. But it feels like if he can just make it through one more year in Maine, like next summer might be the time. And he was, Noah was at practice the other day. Wasn't he saying like, I'm trying to show the coaches I can do it this year. I can get involved. I can be part of Boston. And we were just talking to DJ and he's like, we're really stretching patience, these guys. You said it at the start of the show, John, like these guys are young. Like it doesn't have to happen this year, especially for
a
Walsh.
couple months ago. But it's like,
but he
you're
puts
gonna
that
mature.
pressure on himself. Like he's out here at Summer League right now being like, I got to show I can play for the Boston Celtics this year.
Right. But like, that's the thing is like, if you're talking about how they fare in NBA minutes against NBA competition, you're going to say there's a learning curve, right? And that, okay, geez, I mean, look what he's up against. He's a boy, he's playing against men and, he's still kind of figuring his way out here. But like Summer League's different. Like that's where you can like, okay, this guy can play a little bit sort of thing. And you want to see it. And when you don't see it, you're like, what does he do? And I don't, you guys are saying that's not his game. There's no path to minutes at the NBA for him if he's not able to knock down 3-point shots. I don't think so. Like,
he will. Yeah.
Yeah. Whether it's going well or not, that's got to be his game. So he's got to be able to go out there and shoot it and kind of live with, the peaks and valleys. He's probably got to get stronger. And Noah, as you said, if he's going to be a defensive guy, he's got to be a defensive guy. So like, he's got to do the things he's supposed to do to earn those minutes. He's just not doing them. He's not earning minutes this year, but if he's ever going to turn into something, he's got to do those two things at a high enough level.
Yeah, I just want to say though, he was consistently hitting threes in Maine. Like he was like 36% or something like that. So it wasn't like he couldn't shoot at all. Like tonight's game was a little bit out of character, that type of performance. But what Bobby said about his frustration, that's not out of character. Like that was a big theme for talking to Blaine Miller, who coached the Maine Celtics last year, of like trying to rein him in, trying to get him not let him get in his head so quickly, because he's 0 for 2 and he's already so frustrated that it really increases the chances that he's going to be 0 for 6 when he's like taking every shot so seriously. And I get it. I've played basketball. I feel like I kind of see him a little bit in that emotion, that frustration. Like I feel that sometimes when I'm over whatever, but that's going to be a big part of his growth over the next few years. And I do think he has an NBA future. Everybody around him seems to think that as well. And I don't want to overreact to one game because he looked really good last Summer League. And that was obviously he's better now. He's only grown in the last year. So it was just one game. Maybe he'll come out and hit 7 threes on Monday and look really good. But the two things for me is like being able to play through frustration and not just like foul, because he does do this sometimes. Like he'll get called for one foul and he'll almost respond by fouling again or fouling 3 times. And then just being able to kind of stay within himself. Yeah. Like he probably should just be a 3-and-D player right now and not try to like worry about getting in his bag in Summer League.
Yeah, it's not, and it's not. You're right. I mean, it's not. You're not taking the snapshot off of a single game and say, like, boy, he shot poorly today. He's never going to make it in the league. He was fine last year in Maine, and you're right, about 36%. Knocking down threes. So that it's his game. It's going to be his game. He's just got to get a little bit better at all of it. Other leftover things that we didn't get to it. We didn't. It's not someone who came in with a lot of hype or fanfare. But what were your guys' impressions of Ramsey tonight? I didn't know he existed until 45 minutes ago, an hour ago, and I was like, "Whoa, what was that? Who was that?" And it just impressive, eye-popping, sort of like athletic, displays, kind of all over the place. There, it was impossible not to notice. You're always going to have these guys that just pop up out of nowhere, and then you'll never hear from them again. But let's allow ourselves to get excited for a second. He looked pretty good.
Yeah, and I had never heard of him either, I'll be fair. But Jordan Walsh at practice yesterday said, someone asked him, like, who has really stood out to you in Summer League? And that's who he brought up. He was like, he has been so good this week. And I knew him from growing up, but he's from my area. And, like, he's way better than he was a couple years ago. And so I was, like, eager to see him play. And then he had some big highlight plays. And just the way he drove to the rim was kind of, like, eye-popping. Like, there's not a lot of people that could, so he might be, like, the Jay Scrubb of this year, of, like, someone who you didn't really expect to make a dent, and then all of a sudden he stands out. But he's also in a really tough role. I hate that role for these guys where they have to come in and be like, I'm a microwave scorer right now. Like I have to go hit 5 shots because I'm battling for somebody to notice me. But he did really well. That's what I'm saying. So to be able to actually excel like in that role, that's kind of, to me, like a little bit of a lose-lose because you can't play regular basketball. He impressed.
And they wanted that Sherrod last summer. It's a good comparison. Jay Scrubb, he came out here and hit 1 million shots in Summer League, and it was like, all right, do they need that? Is that a guy they want? And they did. They signed him to that two-way, and unfortunately he tore his ACL there. So if you're going to come out and hit shots like this and do it all 4 or 5 games here, you have to give him a look. This is open competition across the board. Again, no one on this roster outside the draft picks who you're obviously going to give the benefit of the doubt to separates themselves in a game like this necessarily from anyone or in a setting like this. So to me, despite JD signing one of those and who else signed it, Peterson, all 3 of those spots are up for grabs to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked him. Again, knew nothing about him, not a single thing. Definitely kind of impressed, and again, it's he won't be the first, won't be the last person to kind of flash in summer league and to never be heard from again. But you always just hope you catch one of those diamonds in the rough, right? So I'm really curious to see what he does for the rest of the time here at summer league. Because again, there's 1 or 2 of these guys that come out of nowhere and then you're like, yeah, we signed him to a two-way or we did whatever. And again, I don't know what the Celtics have left. What do the Celtics have left in terms of what they can do with people? Is there anything they can do to add outside of the 15th roster spot?
You can pull guys off the two-way and add them.
But I'm saying, how many two-ways do you have? Is there a limit?
There's one open. There's one open right now, but if
One
you
open
want to
now.
drop the 2 guys who are on them and replace them with someone, you can do that.
Yeah.
No, the big thing about Jameis is just consistency. I mean, he's had his share of games like what we saw tonight, but he's just not consistent enough. And that's, you can make that argument for most of the guys that are, late second round picks or undrafted players who just for whatever reason haven't found traction in the NBA. But certainly for a guy that is still kind of searching for that right fit, this was the kind of game that he absolutely needed to have. And let's not forget that even though he's playing for the Celtics, there are 29 other teams that are paying attention to what's happening in summer league. And so even if he, doesn't necessarily fit into Brad Stevens' plans, if he continues to play this well, it would not be a surprise to see him on another team's roster based upon what he's doing this summer. So this was a good start for him, but definitely, I'm curious to see, can he build on this? Can he develop some semblance of consistency over the next few days?
Yeah. All right. So that's our first summer league post game. We're not going to wrap up the show yet. I want to get a couple more things that we're going to talk about before we go, and I'll let these guys scurry off to their work here because, as we said, Noah and Bobby and Sherrod are all hanging out in Vegas. Be there for a few more games. Celtics have an off day tomorrow and they're back at it. I think it's every other day, the 15th and then the 17th. So we'll keep doing this. What time's the tip off for the 15th?
7:30 Eastern, I believe.
We can do that. This boomer's still awake. So yeah, we can, we'll do a post-game show for there.
Will Bronny talk?
Huh?
We'll have a little
Bronny?
Bronny James talk.
It'll be fun. Poor kid, man. I feel really bad for him.
Can't win. He can't win.
I wish Dad just let him do his own thing, but man, I'm rooting for him. I really am. One thing we didn't get a chance to talk about with Sherrod because he's been evading us, or with Noah just because we haven't had her on, is of course the Jaylen Brown situation. That it took on a life of its own. Over the last few days, I will say I'm happy to report that we've gone a full day in Celtics Nation without Jaylen Brown throwing shade at a teammate, which is awesome. So today was a good day. We got some actual NBA basketball, and Jaylen Brown didn't tweet or pop on someone's Instagram to say something that might be viewed as disparaging towards one of his current teammates here, but it happened. It's out there. I still think it's interesting because Kevin Durant's still not practicing and he's still got a calf issue. And the longer this lingers, you wonder if another spot opens up and then all hell breaks loose. But
then that spot will go to Jalen Brunson. They'll bring in Jalen. They just bring in Jalen Brunson.
Isn't the Brunson super hurt off the
I'm just trolling.
Paul George. Yeah. So the story's out there with Jalen, but the question is are there any aftershocks here? Anything happen? And Noah had reached out to Derrick White's dad, and my biggest thing here was like, Derrick got done dirty here. Whether it was intended or not, Jaylen Brown has to be smart enough to understand that if it's not, if Derrick White's not his target, but this opened up, and I don't think he meant to disparage that White sucks and I should have made it, but it opened up this just toxic can of worms that just spilled all over the internet for multiple days. That White sucks. Brown should have obviously made it, and it stomped all over Derrick White's day. It should be a proud moment, and we should be celebrating, or people who are Derrick White. And so this is what's driven me nuts the last few days, is every Celtics fan running to the defense of Jaylen Brown like, well, he should have made it. He should have made it. It's bullshit. Like, don't you understand? You're kind of crapping on one of your more beloved players by saying these things. And I didn't understand.
If it was anyone else not on the Celtics, you could easily say that, but it was Derrick White.
It's Derrick White. Everyone loves Derrick White.
He's the most likable player on your damn team. And that, to me, that was the issue that I had with this entire. I mean, for Jaylen to feel snubbed, I get that. When you have the kind of season and postseason that he has, if there's an opening on an Olympic team, yeah. But here's the thing. It was reported weeks ago that Derrick White was the next up. And guess what? An opening came up. And so what did Team USA do? They brought in a guy that we knew they were going to bring in. And to me, the bigger problem and bigger concern is that in all of Jaylen's like cryptic tweets and no comments, at no point did he say, I'm happy for Derrick. Derrick's a hell of a player. And yeah, I maybe got snubbed, but give Derrick his flowers. Show a little bit of grace and understanding that this is a pretty big freaking deal for that guy. This is the 30th pick. He's the 30th pick in the draft. And now he's going to get an Olympic gold medal. And when you look at the way that team is set up, they need a guy like Derrick White. I go back to when Tayshaun Prince made the Olympic team, and a lot of people were like, oh, I don't know. They needed a versatile, get in where you fit in type of guy who could simply do whatever you're asked of him and not interfere with your other players and just short circuit what they're doing. They needed a glue guy, and that's literally why Derrick White is making a ton of money right now.
For whatever reason. But I bring up the Derrick White, was Derrick White sad by it? We haven't heard from Derrick White. We did hear from Richard White on Twitter, where he did say, basically it was kind of a finger wag to everybody out there. Like, let's do better, people, don't, you can feel one way, but you shouldn't disparage somebody else's accomplishments. Noah, was it that tweet that you read that made you think, I want to reach out here and see what he's thinking with the situation? And did you read that to be that he was like, yeah, man, you guys just crapped all over my son for like 24 hours here. That sucked.
I actually don't think that tweet that he had was about Derrick. He was talking
about
no, because he elaborated later on.
Okay.
He was frustrated with the fact that people were making Joel Embiid jokes about like lose his citizenship during the Olympic game when he was struggling.
Okay.
Yeah, he listed Jamal Murray as somebody that he was frustrated. He like named all the people that were like victims of like mean Twitter comments that night in the replies. So I think he was just saying in general, he would be really careful to not like subtweet Jaylen Brown because he's just so like peaceful on Twitter.
Totally.
Yeah, I reached out to him just because I knew it'd be a few days before we heard from Derrick White, but I knew that Derrick was definitely told his dad some things, so I just wanted to get a little bit of a perspective on how he was doing, and I'm sure we'll hear from Derrick probably tomorrow, some sort of media availability in Abu Dhabi. But I think my feeling about this whole saga is, it sucks because they won the championship 3 weeks ago, and there really shouldn't be conflict or controversy right now. And it sucks because it feeds sports radio. It feeds all the shows that need conflict to thrive. And I saw just some of the most ridiculous takes over the last 3 days around Tatum is preventing Brown from being able to join the team because he needs a break from Brown. There's no way. Yeah, no, but I mean, this is a real take though that's been surfacing. So to me, it's so frustrating that this has become the narrative, and it's also frustrating because Jaylen Brown is a really smart guy, and he knew that by doing that, he was going to be feeding these people. And so
that's the problem.
Yeah, so it's frustrating that he made the decision to do that because he knows.
And as Sherrod pointed out, he had time to process because
White had been rumored. He did it the next day,
and then White had been rumored to replace him, and that was building up, and he still did it. And again, he's got enough,
but
of a radar to recognize that. And then, what bothers me, Noah, on that is the plausible deniability of, oh, you guys are going to just say stuff. That's not what I meant. Yeah, but you're smart. You have to know exactly, as you just said, Noah, where it's going to go, where you're leading people with this stuff. You can't say, I didn't make it because of some bullshit. without it being that guy only got into the team because of the bullshit surrounding me. You're saying the same thing. If you didn't make it for some bullshit reasons, it means it's bullshit that the other guy made it. He didn't deserve it because you deserved it. It's impossible to not make that connection and see it. I'm so shocked he didn't. That's what I don't get.
Yeah.
Because it was his teammate. Yeah.
Right. And it's frustrating because exactly like you said, there's no way for this to not go the way that it did. That being said, I also just want to say, like, we don't really know what is going on behind the scenes with the Team USA selection process. And I've heard I listen to a lot of NBA player podcasts, and a lot of them have weighed in on this over the last few days. Former players, current players, there's a lot of politics with Team USA. And a lot of people feel that individual relationships and not just your on-the-court performance is what goes into selections. And old players have come out years later and kind of told stories about not even getting invitations to training camps or to tryouts. And Kyrie obviously was one of the players that was kind of frustrated about it earlier this year. And I don't really know what happened between Jaylen Brown and Nike. Like, he's tweeting at Nike, and we actually don't know like what exactly happened there. We know he's vaguely called out Nike before. So I think a lot of it is like, we're kind of talking about a couple of cryptic tweets. He's never actually said by name anything about the Olympics. Like, it's just a weird situation. And so I think we should just leave it, honestly, like because it's just, it's a lot of conjecture about a whole lot of nothing right now. So it's just very uncomfortable because we're not even going off of like real statements that he's made. He's tweeting like emojis and at Nike. Like, it's not that he's saying anything super substantive either.
Yeah. And back to John's point, if you're going to do that as him, this is the result. And he had 2-3 circumstances. He got asked on the red carpet to elaborate, and he said, there's a whole thing there that I can talk about another time, but I'm not going to get into it right now.
Yeah.
And
If you
so
want,
what's anyone going to do?
Guess what you're saying. When they ask you to say, what did you mean? Don't say, I'm not telling you. You can't have it both ways. You're either going to be cryptic and leave it there and let everybody wonder about it and not care, or when given a chance to clarify what you meant, clarify it. But you can't now get mad that people just ran wild with speculation over it when you're choosing not to elaborate or to give any substance behind what it is that you're saying. So that that spins the wheels even further. And so I would say, no, I know you're saying like we should leave it alone. I think maybe he should leave it alone or step up and say exactly what he's thinking and feeling, because that would end it once and for all. And somewhere along the line, something public about Derrick White would probably go well. I mean, this is what PR is. You got to do some damage control sometimes when you realize, okay, I didn't intend this, but it kind of took on a life of its own. Now I've done some damage I wish I didn't do. Derrick White was collateral damage in this situation a little bit. Everyone publicly is going to be like, yeah, ask Derrick White. He's going to be like, oh no, man, I'm not mad. And everyone will think it's still, it was done. It was done. It was silly. And it was unfortunate. It was unfortunate this happened. I don't think it's going to split up the team by any means. But yeah, you're right. It's like, it's gotten silly. Tatum doesn't want him there. Nike doesn't want him there. LeBron doesn't want him there. Steve Kerr doesn't want him there. Doug Gottlieb was saying some crazy shit today. I don't know if anybody saw that on his podcast. So you're right. You're talking about the longer there's no clarification, the longer people are going to start coming up with some weird shit to talk about. And so I don't know how it goes away.
But he has a track record of not doing damage control in the aftermath of comments, like
ever.
But later,
the two interviews he did the year before,
he didn't. But then later on, like months
those.
later, he was like, "I'm gonna clear this up now," right? Like, he has. At the end of the day, I think there is something with the media that he just has a different relationship with the media than. It's honestly, I think it's even more complicated than we might even be able to imagine, because he is happy that this is being discussed. Like, he liked my tweets about this, that I like when I clipped the parts of what he said, he liked those tweets. So I'm like, he wants us to be putting this stuff out there. And it was just videos of like what he said at the ESPYs, what he said to Sports Illustrated, like kind of like a whole lot of nothing. So I do think he like wants to draw attention to stuff, but he doesn't necessarily make all the points in a very coherent way, the way that would be helpful to all of us so we could actually discuss something substantive. It's always like just a vibe or like a random thing that he said without being able to draw a whole lot from. But hopefully it blows over, because there's 3 guys that are on the Olympic team that are also NBA champions. And I think Derrick White, I wrote a story about Derrick White's Olympic selection. I was bummed that I even had to include the Jaylen Brown stuff in there, because it's like the story should have just been about Derrick White, like you said, John. But you kind of have to right now because it's all part of the narrative. And from what it sounds like talking to his dad was like, it was an incredible, surreal moment, and that there's always noise, there's always controversy, there's always dialogue. Like, he's really like brushing all that off and just kind of living in this moment and meeting the team that he hasn't been around with. So I don't think it's taking as much of a toll on him, but it doesn't feel great that there's a controversy around what should just be a purely positive thing and a very positive summer.
I agree too. I've said this a bunch when we read into like things that are said in the media, Joe Mazzulla being a great example of it, and what he said and, all of that stuff. I think a lot of it just simply comes down to these guys don't want to give it up to us, to the media. They don't want to play that game. They don't want to be teed up for the soundbite. They don't want to give you the thing that's going to help you, complete your narrative or plug into your story and be able to run with the thing that you want to run with. They just don't want to put it on a platter for you. And that happens a lot, which is,
that's exactly it.
I'm not doing this for you. Joe Mazzulla is a perfect example. It's that combative nature he has with people. It's like, I don't want to give it to you. Like, even if I agree with what you're saying right now, and maybe we should have done this, I'm not letting you have it. I'm not. And so Brown's always had that a little bit too, which is like, nah, man, I'm not playing your game. And there's a little of that to it there. So I get it. It's pretty, kind of regular behavior. And I do think it blows over. I am really, really curious what happens if Durant has to tap out.
I don't think Jaylen Brown made any friends in Team USA this week, so
that's what I mean. Is like, what do you do at this point?
Either another
does
snub,
he take it anyway? Does he decline and say no? You should have done it the first time. You think he declines? Wouldn't that look really bad?
I don't think he declines. I think he really wanted to play on the Olympic team, and I think he feels frustrated.
If he's offered, he has to take it. There's no way he can decline at this point. All the noise he's made, hell no, you got to take it.
I don't think he could. But I wonder if he's next man up here. And again, no, you just said, like, I don't know if he's made a lot of friends. If he's like, basically like, it's bullshit, I should be there. These guys, I'm better than a lot of these guys. And he's going to just show up and be like, hey, everybody, like, how you doing?
Whoa, it's Peyton Pritchard's
it's
on
that
the team.
Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also like Grant Hill said on the radio, like, part of the appeal with Derrick White is that he's a guy that's like not going to have any issues if he doesn't play for a few games, or he's like,
I wasn't buying Grant Hill's answer either, but that's a whole.
He was different on the radio than what he did like in the pregame. He sounded a little more natural. I think he didn't want to give the media anything. Like we were just saying, like a lot of times we get a lot better insight, like not in the pressers, but when they go off on there's some random podcast or things, because then they actually share real thoughts.
I do think Jaylen has a point about the shoe thing. And it was funny that Grant was, in my mind, sweating a little bit over that with the whole, I wore Fila's, that whole thing. But
that was brutal.
It's interesting. And I think, again, to wrap it all up, Jaylen was trying to make a targeted critique of the selection process, a targeted critique of Nike, and whether you didn't realize it or didn't care or didn't agree with our assessment of it, that it ends up slighting Derrick, he just went ahead and did it anyway. And that's probably the most likely thing, right? He probably texted Derrick or did something behind the scenes to congratulate him and thought that was enough, or again, just didn't view this as a slight to him. And we do. And I guess that's just where it's going to be left. And again, if anyone's not going to feel some type of way about it, it's Derrick. So I guess that's the fortunate part about that. But he did put Tatum in a tough position. I mean, Tatum got hammered that next day of practice with questions, and there was no real good answer for Tatum to give there.
Yeah, it was easy. I told you, it's not that hard. He's like, I mean, I don't fault him. He didn't want to take a side, but all he had to say is like, shit, man, I'd have them all here. We're the friggin' champs. He's like, the more Celtics, the better. Done. Everybody loves you. It would have been easy. We might have lost Sherrod. Sherrod might have blinked out here because he was running a little bit low on batteries. And that's fine. We're going to wrap up the show anyway. I just wanted everybody's take because, like I said, I know you talked to Richard about it. And Sherrod, we hadn't had a chance to talk to him. So we'll see what happens. USA Basketball playing now?
No.
I think Monday. They are out there practicing now.
Okay, yeah. I saw Derrick arrived. So that's good. Where are they? Abu Dhabi now?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, we'll be back, as we said, a couple of days. We'll do a a wrap up of the next summer league game. Bobby and Noah are out there. They'll be filing stuff for the next several days, so you can catch that stuff over on our Celtics All Access channel. If you don't subscribe, and I lost my call to action there. I was going to put up a little graphic for you, but please subscribe to our YouTube channels. That's where you'll find all of our game day coverage and post game stuff. There it is. Thank you, buddy. Who's good about that? Who's got my back? Is that you, Jackson? Thank you. Subscribe to All Access. Check it out. You'll get a lot more Celtics coverage there. We'll have press conferences up on our main YouTube channel as well. And as we said, we'll go live again. Should there be any breaking news regarding the Celtics, we will have it for you. But until then, we're covering Summer League. Guys, try to stay cool as best you can. Is there any relief coming?
I thought it actually felt better here than Boston. Boston's just oppressive right now.
What? The temperature felt better here?
Oh, the humidity was killing me in Boston.
It's 110 degrees over here.
I like it
I'd
better.
go back to Boston. That's crazy.
Any Rex, John? I don't know. You're not a big Vegas guy, are you?
I go to I leave campus. I go to Chinatown. In those little strip malls out there. Vegas has a pretty good scene out there for food. It's just small little shops, but you can find a couple of really good. It's more like it's not just Chinese. There's a lot of different Asian types of things there. But every time I'm in Vegas, I actually head out to those spots and do it up. But that's me. That's my jam. That's all I got, guys. Like I said, thank you for joining us. Thanks to Noah, Sherrod, who we lost, but Bobby Bucket Hat will be with us throughout the week. Bobby, how did the bucket hat go over, and why did you not wear the phenomenal one?
Yeah, it's phenomenal. You see it? It's on the back.
Oh, it is. Okay. What? Dude.
It's on the back.
Jimmy would be so mad.
I just got to spin it around. But yeah, you can see it.
Throw up our merch promo. Whoever's in the studio. Do we have the there it is. New merch is here. CLNSmedia.com. Use the code SUMMER24, 20% off all summer long on our merch. Just Jackson. You got a shot of Jackson there modeling the merch. There's just some of it. Bucket hats, I think, are in there too. T-shirts, hard hats, limited edition white ones. Those are going to be running out. But head over there, shop CLNSmedia.com. Use the code SUMMER24. You get 20% off. Go check it out. Guys, that's it. Thank you guys for hanging out. Enjoy the rest of the time there, and we'll see you guys in a couple of days. Thanks, everybody who joined us and watched the Garden Report postgame show. The Celtics fall to Maine in Game 1. They're back at it against Bronny and the Lakers, right?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
That's going to be fun. We'll see you guys.
I think.
Yeah. We'll see you guys out there. Also, you guys should know, first to the floor, those friggin' animals are out there in Vegas right now. They'll be doing a show later on. You want to check those guys out. Also, I think they're coming to you at 11 o'clock tonight. So if you want more basketball, it's one of my favorite shows on the entire network. Might be my favorite show.
I saw them. They are jet lagged out of their mind.
I bet. But they're psyched to be there. And I'm psyched that they made it there because I know they were pretty geeked up about it. So make sure you check those guys out. I know they're going to be all jacked up and excited to bring you all the basketball talk from Vegas. I keep trying to find our outro. We're gonna wrap it. We'll see you guys later.
Wait, Amit's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game. Forfeit's out. I think it's an option. That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.